and welcome to Have Your Say. I'm Ann Minicozy, founder of the Community Breakfast of the Main Line Undoing Racism Day, and I'm here today with our co-host, Diana Robertson, who is the president of the Main Line branch of the NAACP. So welcome, Diana.
Thank you, and
And
Happy New Year
Happy
to
New
you.
Year. And today we're going to talk about Martin Luther King Day events, and the most important thing really is the beloved community.
Yes.
So we're going to start by talking about that. But you just had a great experience. You were just in Washington, D.C.
I had the opportunity during the holidays to be in the D.C. area, and as part of that, we visited the MLK Memorial, and I was with my family, my grandkids, and I thought it was very interesting with them. He's 5 years old, almost 6, but anyway, when he saw the statue, he actually went up to it and he was pushing on it. He's pushing on it, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "I'm moving the mountain."
That's
And I
so
thought that was
amazing.
very profound, and I thought, "Oh, okay," without knowing a whole lot, that was his first inclination. And so I thought it really made me think about that whole moving mountains piece, and it was very inspirational. So with coming on the show today, I thought that was like something very inspirational to think about.
Yeah, that's so
How,
incredible.
yeah, how as if young people can think about moving mountains, what more can we do as adults? So,
And making those changes incrementally,
yes, yes,
and that it's possible to do. He didn't even hesitate, or
not at
no
all.
one told him he couldn't do that. He
Right,
just did it
right,
himself.
right.
Yeah, that's amazing.
And it made me think about, as we talk about Dr. Martin Luther King and popularizing the theme of the beloved community, that one of the things I had looked up and I saw is that he envisioned the beloved community as a society based on justice, equal opportunity, and love of one's fellow human beings. And that's something we should be thinking about every day, and
Yeah.
not just on Martin Luther King.
Yeah. And then along the lines of that, the community breakfast that we've been working on together now for a
Yes.
number of years, because we had 8 community breakfasts this year, starting since 2011.
Okay.
The really underlying idea for the breakfast, as you know, is the beloved community.
Right.
It's important to undo racism,
Mm-hmm.
but I think now the way that we talk about racism, and actually your daughter mentioned this as well, at the breakfast, is that everyone wakes up in the morning with certain biases,
Right.
and then how do you be present and mindful and react to that and engage with each other
Right.
in a loving way,
Right.
and knowing that that's there. So um, this idea of creating the beloved community together is kind of, as the community breakfast is moving towards it becoming a nonprofit,
Right.
that's kind of the direction I see us going, and it's much more comprehensive because there are many things to undo. We just recently had a show about food insecurity, so
Right.
feeding people who are hungry
Mm-hmm.
and helping people who need housing,
Right.
helping the homeless. The idea of creating beloved community together
Mm-hmm.
kind of covers, it's much more comprehensive.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree. And I think, once again, once we can start to talk about how do we take action on a daily basis, I think that's the only way we're really going to really see significant changes. And so everybody's focused on MLK Day, but what happens after the fact?
Yeah.
You know.
There was, I heard Brian Stevenson, who's the author of Just Mercy. It's one of the
Yes.
books that we'll mention towards the end. He was in a radio interview, and he said that once we decide that we want the beloved community, um, how, if that's our goal, if that's what we want, how does that change everything else? What laws would we change? How would we interact with each other differently? So if we decide we want to live in a society where everyone gets along with each other and nurtures each other and no one is superior to anyone else,
Right.
and there's the community of love.
Mm-hmm.
Once you decide that's what I want,
Mm-hmm.
right, then it starts to make you able to see all the things that have to change.
Right.
And then how do we
Or at least
do
you're
that
able to.
personally and
Right.
or like your grandson,
Yeah.
moving mountains a
Right.
little bit at a time.
Right. Right. And just to think that this is necessary to make the change. So it's not going to just happen by itself.
Yeah.
But that what actions are we willing to take to make that happen, and how do we engage others to join us in those efforts? And so one of the things that I do want to talk about is that the Mainline Martin Luther King Association, who's been around for a number of years, they have a program that they're going to have on Sunday, January the 20th. That's at Bryn Mawr College. It is at Goodart Hall at 3 o'clock. And this year, it is a musical tribute to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They will have the St. Thomas Gospel Choir, AME Church of Philadelphia, the Vision for God a cappella group, Mainline Youth Freedom Singers, and they're going to be it's kind of like a mass choir for young people, and the director for that is Patricia Morales. And
I think someone we know is going to be honored at that event this year.
Yes, I'm very honored that that's even happening. That yes, I am one of the honorees.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
It's well deserved.
And the other honoree is Sean Lee, who is a teacher, community activist, and I think he is with Bethel Bryn Mawr, I believe.
Okay.
Yes. And so on that Monday, it is a community service project day of collecting and packaging toiletries that will eventually be distributed to the homeless and shelters. So in addition to what they do that day, they recognize those who are scholarship recipients. And so we get to see who those scholarship recipients are, get to hear where they are in school and their majors and all of that. And I know following that, they will have another application so that students, high school graduates, potential high school graduates, will be able to apply to receive their scholarships.
I think that's so important because when you see the young people being involved, receiving the scholarships, so they're being encouraged by everyone else in the community,
right.
It's really important to see that. Because
right.
as we're getting older, we need the younger people to step up, but we also need to support them.
Oh, absolutely.
So
we set the example, but like you said, we're supporting, we're mentoring, we're helping them to understand the importance of all of this so that they can continue to, as the baton gets passed to the next generations, they'll be able to foster that same type of service in order to continue to develop the beloved community. Yes.
I wanted to ask you also if you could talk about the Freedom Fund Luncheon, which is every December, and that's a wonderful event.
Right. We started it again. We hadn't had it in a while, and so we started again this past December, and we held it at, and I want to say the NAACP Mainline branch had its Freedom Fund Luncheon at the Mount Zion AME Church
In Devon.
In Devon,
yeah.
yes, and Pastor April Martin, and it was very successful from several aspects. But one of the things that we did this year was to honor those branch members who have been around literally for years, since most of them from 60s and the 70s, but have never been honored by the branch. And a lot of them now or cannot come to the meetings or for health reasons aren't able to get out. But there were 9 branch member who were recipients of this award.
And just to mention a couple, Barbara Butler was one of
Yes.
the recipients, who's
Yes.
emeritus board member for the community breakfast.
Yes, yes. And it was their stories. That each of them had different stories that stood out for them, and it was just remarkable to hear those stories. They told them as though they just happened yesterday, and so they were remarkable. It was sad in one instance, but to understand that that was why they were so passionate about being members of the NAACP, because of those stories, and trying to once again eliminate those things that they had experienced. And so we had Barbara, we had
And Roscoe Draper.
Roscoe Draper, Tuskegee Airman, 99 years old.
So impressive.
Yes, yes.
It was so interesting for me to see someone so distinguished, 99 years old,
Yes.
gave service to our country,
Yes.
and then see the young people who were there as well. So again, that intergenerational
Yes.
experience,
Yes.
and that tying together and realizing that, that
Right.
everything that he did, and he was just so
Remarkable.
warm and gracious, and
Yes.
it was incredible. It was really great to be there.
And I acknowledge that there were actually in that room 6 generations. From an infant
Yeah.
to a 99-year-old. And then we had 2 of our past presidents, Geraldine Talley and Reverend Davis, from Mount Calvary, pastor of Mount Calvary Baptist Church, and others. And our treasurer of 25 years, who Helen Salters, who retired with that recognition as well, and Verona Vance. Louise Gibbs, Joyce Gibbs. I'm trying not to forget anybody. And then in addition to that, we had the community award go to Nolan Atkinson Jr. And realizing and doing some research that his father was actually the 2nd president of the branch.
Oh, wow.
So it was very interesting, and he's still very active with doing cultural diversity training and all of that. And so just to know folks did this years ago, are still doing it, which made me think about if Dr. Martin Luther King was here today, I think he'd be very disappointed in the fact that we're still having the same conversation, that a lot of his speeches that he gave in the 50s and the 60s, that we could give them today, and they would just be just as relevant, and that's sad. And I think that he would not be happy to know that. Yes.
Yeah, the fact there's a lot of work to do, but we also have to be very intentional about what we're doing. And
Right.
the luncheon, the Freedom Fund luncheon, for one reason, is a constructed space where people are getting together, and it is the beloved community when you're there. The same thing with the community breakfast, that we have to, unfortunately, construct these spaces where we can be together and create beloved community like that, where it should be that you just live that way,
Right.
all
right.
connected with each other, so that
Right.
we have to do this in an intentional way, which
Yes.
I guess it's good that we know the kind of work that we need to do, but it is disappointing that it should be something that eventually,
Hopefully.
yeah,
And one day we'll just do things. But and I think the other reason it's necessary is because there are folks who have not had certain experiences who don't realize this even exists. Like the disparities, the discrimination, all of these different struggles for certain individuals. Those who are more privileged don't understand that they even exist. So unless we have that space where we can talk about, not only doesn't it exist, but if you're contributing to the existence of it, this is how we can begin to dismantle that.
And it's easier and easier for all of us to live in these bubbles. Even the way that we watch TV, listen to music, the communities that we live in, that we can be separate from each other and be so unaware. But getting back to Martin Luther King Day, it's once a year, but that really is a great opportunity for people to go to their faith community or go to their public library, and we'll talk about a few events.
And even the schools.
And go to their school. Yeah. And maybe
things.
I should go through that now. So we do have a number of events that are happening. One that I think is really exciting, which is your church, Zion Baptist Church in Ardmore, and Bethlehem Israel in Penn Valley, and then Mainline Reformed Temple. For years,
yes,
you all have been getting together and having a unity choir, and anyone who wants to be in the choir can participate.
Absolutely.
So I just actually emailed someone yesterday and found out the dates. You can go to the rehearsals if you want to,
yes,
if you're able to, but you don't even necessarily have to do that. And then Friday night, the 18th of January, from 7:30 to 9 will be the service at Bethlehem Israel in Penn Valley. But if you're in the choir, you come at 6:30 to warm up.
Okay.
And then Sunday morning at Zion Baptist Church, the service is 10:30 to 1. And if you're going to be in the choir, you should arrive at 9:30. So if someone wants to be in the Unity Choir, they can join right in. So I think that's wonderful.
Absolutely.
And along the lines of Bethlehem Israel again, on Monday the 21st, Martin Luther King Day, from 9:30 to 1, they're having an interfaith gathering and doing hands-on activities for all ages. So again, the intergenerational is great.
Good, yes.
And another one on Monday, January 21st again, is Heeding God's Call to End Gun Violence. And we were in a march over from, this was in May, from Bethel AME Church in Bryn Mawr over to Bryn Mawr Presbyterian. There were a couple hundred people there for that gathering in March. The Philadelphia Memorial to the Lost is going to be set up at Overbrook Presbyterian Church, so it's the corner of City Line and Lancaster Avenues. So it'll be set up by volunteers on Monday at 10 o'clock, and then it'll be up for several weeks. So that installation of that memorial to people killed by gun violence has been set up at a number of faith communities in the area, even before May. So it's very impactful to see that memorial. So that'll be set up, and then the day before Sunday is the Mainline Martin Luther King Association holiday service at 3 at Bryn Mawr College. And just for a couple of examples, my faith community, St. Thomas of Villanova Parish, is having a family morning of service from 10 to noon. Radnor High School from 10 to noon is the location for doing service if you're in the Radnor Township School District. And I'm sure Lower Merion is doing this, but I just wanted to have a few examples of things that people sent me.
Which is good, so we can get that out, because I know I just this morning received an email asking what's going on, what activities and programs. And so, like I said, folks are on point with doing things, so we just have to remember after the 21st, we need to continue to do certain things and be much, aware of if they're needed for one day, they're needed for the rest of the year. So.
But I think sometimes it's that kind of experience, that it's kind of a door opening experience, an introduction, that someone will have a certain experience and then they'll realize this is going on all the time. I need to be more involved. Something that tugs at your heart. And we were talking about the Chosen 300 and the person who started that organization, how he had an experience.
Absolutely. And that's what, and sometimes, like you say, experiences will be impactful enough to make you understand that the problem is real, and if it's real, what am I going to do to help to change? So either I'm going to be part of the problem or part of the solution. And so we make a decision.
Yeah, you kind of just make a decision at a certain point that you're going to become involved. And so hopefully the activity that someone may engage in on Martin Luther King Day could help to start that process.
And then as we continue to have the conversations, then I think people begin to understand more, and hopefully will then be able to say, yes, what can I do? You know, how can I help to make a difference? And so that theme, I think, to continue that thing of the beloved community and what that really means, and just to comment on um, when Coretta Scott King wanted to continue what her husband had done, you know, she said that Dr. King's beloved community is a global vision in which all people can share the wealth of the earth. In the beloved community, poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because international standards of human decency will not allow it. Racism and forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of sisterhood and brotherhood. And I think that just, you know, the more we can emphasize that piece and what it means, then folks might have a better of understanding as to the importance and why we have to keep revisiting it. We have to keep doing that and looking at the ways that we can help bit by bit each one of those mountains.
Right, right.
So we could actually reference them as the mountain of racism, the mountain of discrimination, you know, the mountains of poverty and hunger, you know, that how can we chip away at that with one step at a time. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think also for people who might not be able to get out to an event and do service with other people, there's still things that we can do individually.
Yes.
I think it's always important to say that prayer is important. So
absolutely.
there's prayer. There's also a number of books that people can read, and just to mention a few, Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me, I think is a really great book, and it's kind of on the short side.
Okay.
That one's really good. And Just Mercy by Brian Stevenson. He was at Villanova this past year and gave a great talk.
Yes.
And actually his brother Howard Stevenson teaches at Penn.
Penn, yeah.
So I think that's kind of nice, because then if his brother's here, maybe we get to have Brian Stevenson here in town a little bit more easily. But the way that his book, Just Mercy, describing people who are in prison and on death row, and they're there unjustly, and there is a common thread throughout that book of the one man who is in prison and he's on death row, and he has over 60 people saying where he was at the time at a family party, and yet he was still convicted.
Right.
But I don't want to give away the ending, but he does save him from death row. That's a wonderful book. And then Martin Luther King's book, Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community, I think brings us right back to the beloved community, because we could be resigned and not have hope that we can make change, and all of us in our separate bubbles can just decide that we're not going to deal with things, or we can be a community and come together in love, nurture each other, and help each other, which in all the faith communities, different faith traditions that I know of, that is the way that we need to go, is to, and again, create beloved community together. That's the way that we're led to, is to work on this together.
Right. And that basically was his philosophy. I mean, you know, when you look at his whole Dr. King's philosophy, you know, that was understanding of a man of God who, you know, his life's work was dealing with social injustices, but clearly he would not have been able to even make the changes he did had he not been a man of God, I think, you know. So with knowing that and understanding that at a very young age, once again, he was impacted to see the wrongs and looking at really how can we make these changes, and understanding that, you know, eventually love does, you know, overcome hate, but it's still very painful.
Yeah, yeah,
Going through that process is very painful. So, and teaching folks uh, how to withstand. I mean, he actually taught people how to deal with the fight of social justice, and because he himself sat in prison many times.
yeah,
And as folks are going through and doing the reading, especially the younger generation, who didn't live through that part, to know that he has several speeches, not just the "I Have a Dream" speech, but there are actually several very inspirational speeches that give ideas as to his philosophy, the things he did, all of the areas he touched, the economic base, the health, the all of the different areas, like you said, housing, the criminal justice,
and
the
food.
food laws that actually um, uh, perpetuated.
Yeah,
So people don't understand too that a lot of our own laws actually perpetuate discrimination, and so he dealt with that with this, being um, the help to found that Civil Rights Act, to get Johnson to sign that.
yeah,
But he fought a long time to make that happen. And so the Voting Rights Act, so we're talking about voting, so all of those things would not have happened the way it happened had it not been for the fight and the marches and the speeches and the, people coming together
yeah,
to say these things have to change.
yeah. So
Yeah.
really, getting back, and we'll have to end for
Yes.
today, but getting back to
Mm.
creating beloved community together, and I guess we're really encouraging our viewers to do some soul searching
Yes.
and get out to either the library to get something to read, get to an event, and become inspired, re-inspired um, for Martin Luther King Day
Right.
to create a better community for us.
And make sure that they're out there to have their say.
Very good. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.